It was a good meeting, kind of compressed, but a very good meeting. This is in no particular order, but if you're prepared, gentlemen from Rankin, I had one of the things we had asked to do was to review our travel policy. And I know there have been discussions about travel, and I'd ask the gentlemen to look at it and perhaps consult with counsel and if there are any recommendations we need to consider those. My background, of course, as a lawyer, with policies generally, I mean, you want to, if you got a written policy, you need to follow that policy. If you find you're not following that policy for whatever reason, it's probably a good thing to look at it and see if you need to change the policy. If you need to change the policy to conform to do something you need to do, that's one thing, but you need to change the policy. On the other hand, if you find that you're just being lax and really you have a good policy and you're not following, you need to correct yourself, follow your policy. So we want to know which situation we're in, I guess. So I would recognize the gentleman from Rankin to kind of give us a quick overview and give us your thoughts and any recommendations you find out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have reviewed the policy, travel policy, and talked with counsel and Teresa.
She'll be here shortly. She's running down here.
Well, she had told me that she was going to bring a copy of the travel policy for each member to look at.
Okay.
This is a good travel policy that we've had in effect for many years, and of course I think that every one of you need to look it over. There is something that you might want to consider revisiting, and that's some language that was put into our travel policy back in 2010 and also 2011. In fact, Teresa had, in doing this one for me, had underlined all new language in the travel policy that we put, the management committee put in at that time. It's quite lengthy, so I don't dare just sit here and read it to you. If she was here and had the copies, each one could read it for themselves, and if there was anything in it that they might want to revisit and change, then we could bring that up. Or if you want me to, I can read over several things. One thing.
Kind of give us a quick overview, if you don't mind.
One thing that I see in here that was a suspension of reimbursement for travel expenses of members and employees that was adopted at the May the 11th, 2010 meeting. Now this is 2011 here that I'm talking about. It says reimbursements may be made for any in-state and out-of-state travel expenses incurred by an appointed delegate and attending any regularly scheduled meeting of the conference or organization for which the member serves as an appointed delegate up to the cumulative maximum amount of $1,200, which is $1,200 per fiscal year per appointed delegate, including any registration fee for the appointed delegate's attendance at such meetings. Now, in the years that I've spent here on management, we've had quite a number of people to say that $1,200 wasn't enough. Now, $1,200 was a figure that the management committee came up with back in 2010, and that was at a time when we were our revenues were real short, and probably not as short as they are now, but still they were real short. But at that time, you could make a trip. Prior to that, you could make a trip, and if you turned in the delegate turned in expenses of $1,800 or $2,000 or whatever, management just kind of rubber stamped it, and we paid for it, and they kept up with their travel expenses and everything else. But we set this in 2010 when things were in dire need around here at $1,200 as a cap. Now, I really believe that even at that, sometimes it probably wasn't abided by. because a lot of times we would allocate so much money and money would be gone in no time.
Right.
So I think maybe what I see in the travel policy, Mr. Chairman, is a good travel policy that we've got. And I think that
You're not proposing we change the 1,200.
I'm not proposing we change anything right now.
Right. Let me ask this: appointed delegate. How does that work? What delegate? Who appoints the delegate?
The speaker.
All right. So it's the appointment. I put that in quotations. Is from our body.
Yes.
We appoint someone.
And you can the speaker pro tem also appoint the delegate.
All right. So, but the point is, an officer of this house, this body has to appoint the delegate.
That's right.
Okay. Now, we've had, I know we've had different organizations, NCSL, SCLC, things like that.
Exactly.
Okay. But that's all covered in the policies, what
That's
you said.
exactly right.
Okay. Any questions of the gentleman? I saw a gentleman from Jackson first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. Is the Speaker Pro Tem's appointment, is that exclusive of the Speaker's approval? I mean, can he make his appointment without the Speaker's approval or in addition to the Speaker's appointment?
He can do it without the
The
speaker's
speaker
approval.
pro tem may approve additional discretionary. Yeah, you can, the speaker pro tem can
Okay.
make the appointments, yeah.
Okay.
But again, seriously, the point is it has to be someone, it has to be an appointment from the House.
That's exactly
No
right.
outside group can say this is our delegate.
No.
We need to pay for them.
No.
Okay. All right, so your recommendation is that we stick with this policy we have now. It's a good policy.
Good policy.
Any issues we may have had about travel, I then therefore take it either because someone misunderstood what had happened or because something had happened that was not in accordance with policy.
Right, I think there's some concern by, some of the members that maybe the $1,200 is not enough.
Right.
But the $1,200 was put in here as a cap at a time when we were, when funds were short, and we're still short. So personally, I don't recommend us changing that cap.
All right, well, what I would suggest we do, at some point, I want us to, I'm sorry, we got a question. Go ahead. We got two questions. I'm sorry. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask a question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Has it been decided which organizations we can send delegates to? Is there a question on, for the Speaker or the Speaker Pro Tem, which conferences are we sending delegates?
Well,
Are those named?
no, they're not named. They more or less apply. Whoever wants to go. If you've got
Any conference
for any
that
conference,
comes up
whatever,
that's pertaining to
then you petition that. Am I right in that, Council?
If it's a legislative organization that the Speaker or the Pro Tem has made an appointment to, appointed a delegate.
What her question was to me was any particular organization,
They're
or
not-
is it limited to just 2 or 3 or whatever organizations? But
They're-
I don't see that in this travel
It's not
policy.
limited.
No, it's not.
So
Well, I would assume, obviously I had this conversation with the Speaker, but I would assume that we'd get our heads together and come up with something consistent and wouldn't be, something that would be fair to everyone. If it's something that the committee would feel like it would like to address, I don't know if the Speaker had any problem with that either. I'm going to give you some direction from you, but y'all might think about that. We're not going to adopt this today, and I know we've got a couple questions. I'm not trying to cut y'all off. What I would propose we do, I hear the gentleman who studied the policy indicating that he thinks it's a good policy on paper. Therefore, we're not suggesting changes to the policy, which means to me that we enforce the policy. So we want to, I think, at some point soon, I would like to see us do this not only with travel policy, but all the policies. Embrace the policies and adopt the policy as our policy. I don't think it's acceptable really to say we just, not to address something and then something comes up and say, well, they've done this before. Well, it's our job now as a new organization, a newly organized house every 4 years to look at this. If this is our policy, let's say it's our policy, let's adopt it and embrace it, re-adopt it. I think that's the way to handle it. But I don't think we're prepared to do that today. If everyone does not have a copy of the policy, can we get sometime between now and the next
I
meeting?
have it right here.
Well, if you have it, everyone take these and look at these, and with an idea that sometime shortly, next meeting or two, we'll adopt this as our policy. And the gentleman's not suggesting any changes. If you look at them yourself and feel like some changes are warranted, then by all means say so. And in the meantime, I think probably it should be incumbent upon me. Frankly, I didn't realize, I thought it was in the policy itself, but if it's a matter of discretion, so to speak, for the speaker and the pro tem about how the delegate process is selected, speaker and I probably need to get our heads together and make sure we're singing out of the same. Well, let me just be honest with you. If I'm singing off his songbook, we want to be together, is what I'm saying, and we can certainly do that. All right, gentlemen from Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The language that I was talking about is you find on page 4 and 5, the underlined language. That's the only language that I thought maybe somebody might be interested in revisiting.
That was the 2000.
This was language put in 2010 and 11.
All right. Well, I do encourage everybody to look at this with an idea. Again, we're not going to take action on it today. You may have just seen it, but you have had the preliminary review and recommendation from the gentleman from Rankin. You look at it as well, and we'll make a decision on that at a future date. All right, lady from Union. There you go.
You probably, I was 5 minutes late, I apologize. You probably said this before I entered. The $1,200 cap, that didn't include registration fee, did it?
No.
So you would get allowed $1,200, because the registration fee currently is $3,600.
No, the $1,200 does not include registration fee or delegates of any of the delegates.
Okay, I was thinking that was the case. Thank you.
All right, any other gentleman from Lee, did you have a question?
Well, I did. I think you may have answered it. I understood the gentleman to say that we had not always abided by this. And I think you said that we would be enforcing this from now on. Is that right?
If we're going to have a policy, that's why I want us to read it and embrace it and adopt it, so we don't have an excuse. If it's a policy we have, we need to enforce it. If we're doing something that's not in accordance with the policy, we need to change the policy, or we need to say we're not going to do that anymore. We have a policy that prohibits that. We need to do one or the other. We don't need to be in no man's land. So be comfortable with this policy, or let's change it. That's what I'm saying. Representative Perkins, I apologize. I forget your county.
Yes.
LaFleur, of course, it's LaFleur. Of course.
Yeah, let me
You're
just
right.
see if, is it my understanding you're saying that even if there are no changes, we need to re-adopt the policy that we already have?
Gentlemen, I'm not saying we need to. I just think it's probably good practice. I don't know that it's required. What my point is this. I'm new to this committee, and many on this committee are new to this committee. And furthermore, I'm given to understand that even those that have served on this committee before, there were various stages of involvement by the committee as a committee. My only suggestion is if we're going to be plugged in, we're going to be an active committee. And I just thought it behooved all of us to undertake the work, if you will, of studying the policies that are in place. And even if they're pre-existing policies, let's adopt those ourselves and embrace those so that we can say, yeah, that's our policy too. It's a kind of a way of, I don't think it's necessary, but it's kind, I agree with you, but it's kind of a way of forcing us to take a look at the policies and making sure they're policies we want to keep or if we want to change. That's all my point. And particularly with personnel or with travel policies, make sure we're comfortable with them. Whether or not we formally readopt them or not, we ought to at least take a look at them and decide whether any changes are needed.
And let me, if I may, Mr. Chairman, ask the council whether or not the management policy, are they similar to the house policy that, the house policy you adopt them every 4 years? Are these with us all the time?
Well, just like when a subsequent legislature takes over, they don't re-adopt all the laws. I mean, these are your policies until you choose to change them or revise them.
That's correct, and I'm not suggesting otherwise. I'm not saying we don't have a policy if we don't act. To the contrary, I think if we don't act, we've got the policies we had before. I agree with that. My whole point here is to kind of force us all to look at what policies we do have, and I would like to see us say, if not re-adopt them, at least say all right, we've looked at this, we're going to have a motion, we don't see any changes to this that are necessary or whatever. Forces us to look at our policies and kind of own them, so to speak. I just think that's what we need to do.
Okay. I just want
as
some
a-
clarification.
But I think you're exactly right about the effect. If we don't change a particular policy, it's still our policy. But if we don't look at them all, we may be, sorry down the road we didn't at least look at a change in these. But I would ask you to look at these. And do we have another question? I thought I had saw another hand. Was it gentleman from Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. What happens, let's say, I don't know if a lot of you, I get sometimes educational stuff from Harvard, or sometimes stuff from Princeton, to go participate in some type of education workshop. I'm quite sure other members of the legislature are receiving those type of things too.
I've got some things from the Harvard School of Government. Is that what you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
It seems to me that there's an opportunity to take a member, get them a chance to go to receive some type of additional training, and make them a sharper legislator, which then benefits our group as a whole. What happens if a person has exhausted his $1,200 and that opportunity comes up? I was thinking about it. I told the senior gentleman from Rankin, who's very astute and has been around here several times, and outstanding second baseman.
That's what he says.
Back in the 40s.
I was thinking about increasing the amount from $1,200 to $2,000, and let individuals choose the conferences or workshops they wanted to go to. They could not exceed, whether it was in-state or out-of-state, but they got to pick the conferences that they want to go to or for some additional training. That was just dialogue I wanted to have that I mentioned to you. Because sometimes there's an opportunity. All of us come here as novices in some one shape, form, or fashion. However, when you get here and you get consumed, some of us become experts in education, some of us become expert in healthcare because of the legislation and the matter that we deal with on day to day. But there are opportunities for people to go out and be trained in stuff that will come back and benefit us. There are certain practices and policies that other states are doing, and if you go to these workshops or these educational opportunities, you learn things and you come back sharper and brighter. I would like to see us have an opportunity to make the average legislator that is serving here in the House a better, above average legislator. So an opportunity to go to these very different trainings will benefit us as a whole. Now I know we spend about $160 to almost $170,000 a year with the 1,200 policy. The extra money wouldn't take us that much over $200,000, but it all wouldn't come out of this fiscal year. Some will go into the next fiscal year.
Well, gentlemen, now I may be wrong, and correct me, I'm correct counsel, but I think the $1,200 is a per trip allowance. Is that not correct?
No, sir.
No,
Is
it's
that
not.
correct?
It's per year.
All right, it's per year. All right,
Yeah.
all right, all right. I'm glad I'm correct. All right, but that,
Only for-
all right, it is only for appointed delegates, so that's correct?
Right.
All right, so there is no limitation necessarily for something like you're talking about. It'd be a matter of I guess, having it approved, especially by the, well, I would say.
But if
Yeah,
you're not approved delegate, then what happens? What I mean,
Well, could not
this?
this,
I believe, and the reason I'm bringing this point up, I believe that we all have an obligation to make our members better members. I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that the everyday person becomes a better legislator because it benefits this organization as well as the state and their local district. So if we have an opportunity to help someone engage an educational opportunity, I think it benefits us as a whole. There are some, from what I've seen over the last few years, There are some multi-talented people here. And I don't think we've taken advantage of these the people who are involved in their skills. And it would be my hope that we would move beyond personalities and get down to the talents and take advantage of people's talent. And a lot of times we get lost in not using a person's talent because of some philosophical differences. And I wish we move beyond that.
Gentlemen,
So that's why
I don't disagree with anything you say here. Of course, I'm learning as you're talking about novices. Of course, I'm a novice as chairman of this committee, for sure. But the council has given me the same rule, subpart 2 of the rule that deals with the $1,200, and that's going to be on page, if you've got it here, what's that page? It's going to be on page, let's see, 4, page 4. Is that correct? So part 1 of it. All right, so it's actually on the second page of the travel policy. Yeah. If you look at that D2, that it appears to allow what you're saying. It just has to be. There is no money attached to that. I mean, it's a matter of applying for that and having that approved. So I think what you're asking for would be allowed. It's not automatic. Obviously, it has to be directly related and has to be approved by the management committee pursuant to a recommendation from the speaker or the speaker pro tem. So I think it's allowed, and I think we've got a mechanism in place to address that if we need to. Now, I think I'd be uncomfortable, just speaking for myself, raising the amount until I know we've gotten a report this morning and we're confident enough in what she told us to make some of the staff things we did this morning. And I'm not saying at all we don't need to take a look at that number perhaps down the road, at least after we get into the new fiscal year and see where we're at. I'd be a little bit uncomfortable this early on making that change.
that's my recommendation.
Well,
in the new fiscal year.
Well, we certainly can take a look at that. I don't have an issue with something like this. Doesn't have to be written in stone. It can be looked at every year, as far as I'm concerned, to see what's appropriate. So I don't have an issue with that. I just don't know if we need to do that now, is what I'm saying. I think the recommendation, in fact, we're not doing anything with it today, but the recommendation is for us to not make a change. But now, y'all all look at this policy. We're not going to vote on this today. And if you see this issue or some other issue you think we need to tweak or change, we'll do that probably the next meeting. I want to give everybody the opportunity to read through the policy fully. I hadn't done that, or I wouldn't have had the question I had a while ago. So I need to do that as well. Yes, sir.
Not to prolong the discussion, but my understanding is when this exception was passed, it put a halt to all travel, in-state or out-state.
That underlying travel?
Yeah, and that the only thing that, only travel that was, that could be approved is when you point out the delegate. That was my understanding. So the situation that Reverend Hyde is discussing would not be covered, would not be accepted under the new language. I think complete halt to all travel except when you are appointed as a delegate. Okay. And then you limit to $1,200.
Right. Well,
yeah, I think we put a free pro.
I think you're right.
Yeah, he's right.
And I guess, we're not out of those woods yet. It would be my own thought. We look like, again, we've got a preliminary report this morning that seemed relatively positive about where we are for the rest of the year. But I think we need to take a longer view of where we are. I'm perfectly willing to look at whether or not we need to go back and redo that. I just don't know that we need to try to do that in the short run. That's all I'm saying.
Chairman, as I was saying, this was done and implemented at a time where we were having some real hard times. And we're not sure where we're at now.
Not absolutely sure. We've gotten a positive report, but we're certainly not. Well, I guess we have, I do think we've talked about this long enough. I don't mean to cut this off. We're not going to take a motion on this now. I want everybody to take this policy and read it. Probably with an idea of we're going to take a final look at it next meeting and make a decision on if we need to make changes. And if not, it's going to be our policy. We're going to follow it. I'll also try to have some discussions with the speaker, although on his list of things to do, this would be a little bit far down the list, I would think, but about if he's got any ideas about how the, what the criteria ought to be. I'd like to have as much, nobody likes discretionary stuff, I don't. Not if it's my call. I'd rather have a policy you can rely on because everybody can know that you're being consistent and that you're treating everybody the same. That's kind of what we need to try to find, whatever that is. That's not to say there won't be case-by-case deals, there just will be, and you just have to kind of deal with those as they come. But to the extent we can establish a policy that will give us direction, that's what we need to do. But I'd ask everybody to look at these. Yes, sir.
Just something else that I wanted to bring up that I didn't bring up. When this was done, it also took away a lot of the memberships, extra days. I mean, we kept our 4 constituent days, but in committee meetings, sometimes special committee meetings or subcommittee meetings or whatever that was called and approved, then this language here provided that you use your discretionary days
Correct.
and not be paid for extra days.
Correct.
And this is something that the House did that the Senate did not do.
Right. Well, I do think, and this is my personal opinion, I do feel strongly that the members, particularly those that are not chairmen, should be accorded some of the privileges of membership in this body, which include having the right to a certain number of discretionary days when they're doing work for constituents. We need to protect that, but then again, we also need to be responsible with our money too in our budget. And it's going to take us a little while. It's going to take me a little while to get a good feeling for where we are with that. I was encouraged again by what Lavinia said this morning. Gentleman from
I think that part needs to be changed as far as the committee. When the committee meets out of session, I think they should be paid for that. So that part, I think we should.
I certainly agree with that as a matter of whatever philosophy or whatever. I agree with that, and we're going to be in session until
May,
the first week of May. So it very well could be something that for the new fiscal year beginning in July 1 we'd want to institute. Because between now and then we'll know we'll start afresh. We'll have a House operating budget. We'll be able to help formulate that and know what that is. And I agree with you, that ought to be a goal. Because if the committee's here working and you travel to the Capitol, that ought to be something that ought to be a committee responsibility, so to speak. So I agree with that. If this was done as a practical matter, as you know, because of the circumstances. And this is, and I don't have to give this speech. Y'all all know this. This is taxpayer money. This should be spent in connection with our legislative service. That's what it's for, and we need to be responsible with that. And I think that's what the effort was done before to be, and we don't want to lightly treat that. We want to make sure that we've got the resources to be able to do it. But I certainly agree with what you're saying. All right, let's move on. Y'all take that and look at that, if you will. And now I would like next, I think probably, and we've got several, let me make sure what we have here. I know we have a report from your committee, a subcommittee. We have a report from Representative Zuber's committee on space. We may have a report from your committee on staffing and sort of thing. Let's do this. I think at this point, let's look at the space situation. I'm going to recognize Representative Zuber. I want to say in advance how much I appreciate Representative Zuber, Representative Turner, and Representative Perkins for spending at least a couple hours yesterday, along with staff with legal counsel. It was an interesting caravan going around this. I got to tell you, it's like here they come. Look busy. I'm sure that wasn't the case, but it really was. People did know that Representative Zuber was in the hall. I got to tell you that it was interesting, but it really was. I think we gathered a lot of information. Very grateful also for the legal staff putting together a memorandum about the results of that, and I'm going to recognize Representative Zuber, and you can handle it however you want to. Tell us what you found, and I don't mean to sound too giddy about this, but I was really encouraged by what we found and what our possibilities are as far as serving the membership with space needs. But Representative Zuber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Needless to say, word around the Capitol spreads pretty quickly whenever you're discussing or considering office space and who possibly needs to change and where we're going to find additional space. But before I give you a general statement of what we did, let me thank my colleague, Representative Turner and Representative Perkins, for assisting me. This was not an easy task. Okay. As you know, the Speaker charged the Subcommittee on Office Space to find space and